You know, Perplexity AI has been a huge fan favorite for a while now. It's that go-to tool for so many of us who want a really powerful search and chatbot experience all in one. But here's the thing. The company recently made some changes to its terms of service that kind of went completely under the radar. So today, we're going to unpack this silent update and see what kind of red flags it's raising for the very people who love the platform.
And look, it's clear this isn't just any tool. As our source for this explainer says, Perplexity was their absolute favorite chatbot. I mean, it had these unique features, right? Like using multiple AI models in one spot, which really set it apart from giants like ChatGPT or Claude. And that deep user loyalty, that's exactly why these new terms feel so alarming.
So here's the timeline of how this all went down. Before this year, Perplexity was this beloved, highly recommended tool. Then, on January 23, 2024, the company updates its terms of service. And according to our source, there was no announcement, no email, nothing. And now, as people are digging in, they're discovering some really concerning clauses that kind of change the entire relationship between the company and its users.
Okay, let's get into the first major red flag, and this one is a biggie. It points to a huge contradiction between how the service is sold to us and how we're actually allowed to use it, legally speaking.
This is where things just get weird. On one hand, you've got Perplexity selling a Pro plan for $20 a month. The name Pro alone suggests it's for professionals, for businesses, for work. But then you dig into their new terms, and Section 5.1 says, clear as day, that you can only use the services for personal, non-commercial use. Wait, what?
So that brings up the million-dollar question, right? If you're a professional and you're paying for a pro plan to help you with your job, maybe brainstorming ad copy or drafting a business plan, are you technically breaking their rules? If you read the clause literally, it sure seems like you might be. It's a real head-scratcher.
And that leads us right into the second red flag. This isn't just about how you use the tool, it's also about the new rules for what you can do with the stuff you create with it.
Okay, so the new terms now have these mandatory attribution rules. Basically, if you make something with Perplexity and you share it publicly, you have to give them credit. You've got to say it was made with their AI, and you absolutely cannot pass it off as something a human made all by themselves.
This really opens up a fascinating debate, doesn't it? When you're guiding the AI, feeding it prompts, editing the output, is the final result really AI-generated, or is it more of a human-AI collaboration? The terms don't seem to care about that distinction, and that's a huge point of friction for creators who see AI as a co-pilot, not the sole author.
And now we get to what our source calls the most alarming change of them all. This is all about the rights you're giving Perplexity over your own data, your own creative work.
Before we even look at the clause, we need to understand a really important legal term here: irrevocable license. It sounds boring, but it's not. It means you are giving someone permanent permission to use your stuff, and you can't take it back, ever, not even if you delete your account. And here it is. The new terms grant Perplexity an incredibly broad license to any content you put in. It's royalty-free, so they don't have to pay you. It's transferable and sub-licensable, so they can pass those rights on to other companies. And it's irrevocable as long as it's sitting on their servers. Yikes!
Because of this, the source creator's advice is a pretty stark warning. Just don't. Do not put any of your copyrightable material, your intellectual property, or even your creative writing into this tool anymore.
All right, finally, let's touch on the fine print. This part is about what happens when the AI messes up, which, is a pretty standard but still really important detail to be aware of.
So these clauses are actually pretty common in the AI world. Perplexity is basically saying, hey, our output isn't professional advice, it can be wrong, and if you use it, all the risk is on you. And if something does go terribly wrong, their liability is capped at just $100 or 6 months of subscription fees, whichever is more.
So, after combing through all these red flags, what's the final verdict? What does this actually mean for people who use and love Perplexity?
Well, our source's conclusion is pretty blunt. These new terms are a deal breaker. Because of those weird restrictions on commercial use and that unbelievably broad content license, they just can't recommend Perplexity anymore, especially not for anyone doing creative or professional work. So if not Perplexity, then what? Well, the source suggests looking into other major players, naming Gemini and Claude specifically as the top two alternatives that can probably replace the functionality people really loved about Perplexity. And all of this brings us to one final big thought.
This whole situation with Perplexity isn't really just about one company. It forces us all to ask a much bigger question about every AI tool we use. Are we just the customer buying a service? Or, with all the data and content we're feeding into these systems, are we also becoming part of the product? Something to think about.